Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for joining us today for our May show and tell. Excuse me. I have a really bad cold. So, excuse me. I'm going to try my best to get through this. Excuse me.
Michael, you
Amy,
want someone to take over?
I'm going to turn it over to you, Amy, for just a second. Or Ashley.
Totally. We got you, Michael.
No problem, Michael. Hi, everybody. So for those of you who haven't joined these before, we love our show and tells to be really interactive. So please use the chat box. You'll see everybody already talking to each other in there. Just to give any comments or questions or feedback, we love hearing from you. If you want to select to send your comment to everybody, that means we can all see it. The default, I think, is to send just to the host and panelists. So we would love for you to join in the conversation. I also just wanted to let you know quickly that we had our first Colour Week this week, or we're in the middle of our first Colour Week, in which we held 3 webinars exclusively for clients, yesterday and today. We explored fall winter 23-24 season. So yesterday we held our color shifts webinar and our sentiment colors webinar. And then today we explored the top 10 colors by market. So we explored these 8 different markets that you see on the screen now. So that took place earlier today. So if you're a client and you missed out on those, don't worry, we're editing them at the moment and they will be available on the platform in the next couple of days. But it has been an action-packed week. And then tomorrow we have the last of our webinars in this Colour Week, which is our Colour Shifts preview webinar for Spring Summer 24, which is really exciting. This is open to clients and to non-clients as well. So everybody is welcome to join this. We'll be exploring 3 of our 5 must-have colour shifts for the season. You'll learn the cultural intelligence behind these shifts and see how these new colours, 15 new colours, will evoke consumer desire across all markets for the season. So it's really, really great one. There'll be a live Q&A at the end, so it's really worth joining live and getting involved in the conversation. So we hope to see you there. I will, just after I finish speaking, put the registration link in the chat box so you will have it easily, but you can also find it on our websites. And
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you.
No problem.
Apologies for coughing in everyone's ears. My voice is mad at me for the webinar earlier. All right, we're going to switch over to the links. We have some really good ones today. We are going to kick it off with Danny from our women's team. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Danny. I'm the women's wear strategist here at Fashion Snoops. So my first link here is in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, which is this month. And it's all about the villain era, though it's not the kind of villain that you would think. I actually recently sent this to Chelsea, our senior youth strategist too, because I thought it was just such an interesting development that's happening specifically on TikTok that validates a lot of our forecasts, which I'll explain. So essentially, the villain era for 2022 has a mental health slant to it. It's about people, women specifically, exercising and setting boundaries, taking up space, being unapologetic and owning their power, and giving up on people pleasing completely. And the article from ID looks at it from different angles here. So from a spiritual standpoint, Jacqueline Rath of Evergreen Mystic Co., a Pacific Northwest-based crystal shop and apothecary, says the villain era is about connecting to one's darker sides and really doing that shadow work and igniting your divine feminine energy from within. From a cultural perspective, this validates our fall winter 23-24 design aesthetic mystic and color shift shadow work, which we delved into a bit this week as part of our Color Week webinar series that Ashley spoke about as well. But on the other hand, Rachel Wright, a psychotherapist based in New York, finds the association between setting boundaries and calling it villainous to feel a little bit disheartening, because setting boundaries ultimately should be a common practice to maintain your own mental health and just overall happiness. So ultimately here, if calling oneself a villain helps them assert their power more firmly and feel more confident, then that's all that really matters here. And with any new habit or pattern, as we know, when one is trying to forge a new pattern as part of their mental health practice and repetition and experimentation and doing whatever you need to do that works for you is the best way to go about it. So that's my first link. And then my next one highlights some new developments in the metaverse from Marnie. So the brand has created a new digital experience called Where We Are that launches in April. And on the women's team, we're currently actually working on a report about the recent and first Metaverse Fashion Week that was hosted on the Decentraland platform. And although Web3 has a ways to go as it's still in its infancy, and Metaverse Fashion Week users actually reported low resolution graphics and the platform is prone to glitching, though nonetheless, overall, jumping into the digital space in the metaverse really gives fashion brands a major opportunity to expand storytelling, their marketing presence, as well as overall community building efforts when you're trying to engage with new consumers, say gamers, for example. So for Marnie, Where We Are will provide users with the experience to interact with pieces from their Spring Summer 22 collection that will be completely digitized and worn by model avatars, as well as interact in an immersive virtual environment that design-wise mimics and mirrors our tangible earth-based grounded reality of blue skies and shimmering lakes, hills, and mountains. It's a more approachable digital world that feels familiar, less daunting, and dystopic in some ways, and it's just a true reflection of our natural world. And this really connects also with some internal conversations we've had here at FS, just about how we can make tech-related aesthetics more accessible and not feel overwhelming. And with Marnie here and having Where We Are look like the world that we live in, I think it really helps with that and makes it feel more familiar to us. So that's it for me.
Well said. Thanks for bringing the villain topic to the table. I actually have a link that will go with that later. So
Oh, good.
it's in the zeitgeist. Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it. All right. Next, we're going to move to our newest member of the FS team, Anush, and I'll allow her to also introduce herself to all of you out there in the world. Hi, Anush.
Hi, Michael. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. And I'm so happy to join the team. Since it's Color Week, I wanted to bring something really colorful with my first link. And this is a YouTube link to a dance performance that I got to see in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago from the troupe Sasha Waltz and Guests. And it's a really optimistic piece that is full of color, full of life, put together during 2021, and often the dancers were in isolation, so they were able to learn the moves through video. And the music is from Terry Riley, his 1964 musical composition that is really working with improvisation within a framework. And so the dance followed suit. And Sasha Waltz, the choreographer, was speaking to some questions, particularly around the pandemic, like how much space can we take or give to others, and how can we be free ourselves without harming others. So if you want to click the link, we can watch
Absolutely.
a few
Before I
minutes.
press play, Anush, can you tell everyone what your position here at FS is and where you are currently based?
Yes, I am the new accessories director here with FS, and I am between Barcelona and New York, and in Barcelona right now.
Awesome. All right, let's check this out. love it. Anoush, I recognize a lot of those colors from our sentiment colors.
Yeah, it feels really poignant right now, and it's also really calming in a way, and positive and optimistic. So I loved that. My second share is a new retail experience in Atlanta, Georgia. And this new store, multi-brand store, is founded by Lauren Amos and Eugene Rapkin. And Eugene is pretty discerning fashion writer and critic. And I thought it was really interesting that a fashion critic is curating a store now. And they have a beautiful accessory selection, which really spoke to me. And kind of bringing this to Atlanta, something that's more avant-garde fashion and in terms of arts, music, speaking to the adventurousness and openness of clients in Atlanta, and really trying to provide something for a new retail experience for people. And they spoke, I attached a link to a podcast where the founders of the store were interviewed, and they're really paying attention to customer service, helping and encouraging clients to step out of their comfort zone and experiment with more interesting fashion choices. They're going to be having Undercover, Rick Owens, Jun Takahashi, Comme des Garçons. So seems really interesting happening in retail. So I think that's something really to keep an eye on what they're doing, and hopefully, there'll be more interesting retail popping up in cities that we might not expect.
I love that. There's definitely a fashion customer in Atlanta, but we don't hear a lot about directional retail there. So this is great. Love the style. And there's the podcast. Yep,
the podcast. Yeah, it's a great listen if you have time to. And then my final one is a film that I just recently rewatched. It's from 10 years ago, Only Lovers Left Alive. I'm sure FS was looking at this when it came out 10 years ago, and I felt like it really speaks to some of our fall winter 23-24 sentiments. It's a vampire film by Jim Jarmusch with Tilda Swinton, and it's about this couple that's been together for hundreds of years. And I just love the music, which is really transgressive, and the storyline, which is funny and dramatic. And I just included the trailer here if we wanted to take a peek at the aesthetics, and the locations and the palettes felt really timely for what we're doing.
Absolutely. I'm glad you included this and that it's come back around. It is one of my favorite movies, and it is funny you say that, because I think I originally did learn about it from our team that long ago, but it's so cool and not a typical vampire movie. So let's watch this if you're not familiar. It's really beautiful.
Our third wedding. You look so young.
Give my regards to that suicidally romantic scoundrel.
Well, let's hope he's just romantic.
You being so reclusive and everything is probably only going to make people more interested in your music.
Yeah. What a drag.
My sister's looking for us.
Shouldn't she be sleeping in a coffin somewhere?
I'm really, really hungry.
Could you smell it all the way from LA?
We're gonna have so much fun together.
We gotta go. Right now.
Coming.
Is that the really good stuff?
Precisely.
Typo. Negativo.
I protect a secret in your soul.
lucky in love, though, if I may say so.
I have what you need.
Not what I need.
And I just looked, and you can stream it currently on Hulu.
Nice.
Any of you out there haven't seen it. Thank you, Anush. Welcome to the team. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, so I am up next. My 3 links I'm really excited about. So my first one today is a trailer that just dropped. Most of us have been highly anticipating this for a long time. It's called Don't Worry, Darling. It's out September 23rd here in the States. Of course, this is the long-awaited movie starring Harry Styles and Florence Pugh, of course, directed by Harry's girlfriend, Olivia Wilde. They met on the set of this movie, but people have been wondering what it's about for quite some time. They've only leaked a few images here and there, but I wanted to show it because it really is a great validation of a lot of things that we've talked about for quite some time at FS, including this kind of subversive approach at suburban living. You'll see that. The colors are really beautiful. I wanted to read one quick thing before I play the trailer, and it will speak for itself. But on stage at CinemaCon last week, the director, Olivia Wilde, said that this movie is reminiscent of Inception, The Matrix, and Truman Show all rolled into one. She said, it's my love letter to movies that push boundaries of ambition. And she asked the audience to imagine a life where you could have anything you ever wanted, not just the tangible things, but also the things that really matter. True love with the perfect partner, real trusted friendships. What would it take for you to give up that perfect life? What are you willing to sacrifice to do what's right? Are you willing to dismantle this system that is designed to serve you? So I thought that was really profound. And now I'll play it and check out how beautiful it is.
I have it. Focus, right here.
Have a little drink.
Yeah, I will.
You and me.
Always. You and me.
All of you wives. We men, we ask a lot. We ask for strength, food at home, a house cleaned, and discretion above all else.
Boys and their toys. At least we know they're getting work done.
Welcome to the Victory Project.
We're all here because we believe in the mission.
What are we doing?
Changing the world.
What are we doing?
Changing the world.
That's right.
What do you think they're really doing out there?
What do you mean?
The one thing they ask of us is to stay here. Where it's safe.
Do you even know what the Victory Project actually is? Have you ever asked?
Do you?
Please. What's actually happening?
Stop it, Alice.
What if this place is dangerous? What if
No. Jack, it's okay. I'm curious to hear where she's going with this.
I need you to listen to me. They're lying about everything.
We are not going backwards. We're pushing forward.
Everyone is acting like I'm crazy. And I'm not crazy.
Our life together. We could lose this.
I don't trust it. And I don't want to be here anymore.
So I just loved the imagery. I thought it was ironic that Florence Pugh was actually in Midsummer, which we all love, of course, at FS, because it has that same horror in the bright sunlight kind of vibe. So really excited about that. It's super weird, but the imagery is so relevant to a lot of things we've actually posted over the last couple of years. My second link is a different thing for me. I don't typically kind of do this, inspired by this kind of person type of thing. I made a quick little deck. So I had actually never heard of this guy, Edward Carpenter, and I'll get to how I came upon learning about him in a second by showing you some tweets. But he was an amazing man who lived from the mid 1800s to 1929. He was an English utopian socialist. He was a poet, a philosopher. He was also an early activist for gay rights, sexual liberation, prison reform, and he advocated for vegetarianism, and he took a really strong stance against operating on animals for scientific research years and years before anyone even talked about it. As a philosopher, he was known for his publication of a book called Civilization, Its Cause and Cure, and in it, he described civilization as a form of disease through which human societies pass. And I looked into him a little more. After he died, his work was mostly forgotten about until basically the 70s and the 80s, when the British labor movement kind of took him on as this icon. There was a huge interest in his work. And it was really great because a lot of the early gay press actually also used him for a huge point of inspiration. His opposition to pollution and cruelty to animals has resulted in some historians arguing that his ideas anticipated what we now call the green and animal rights movement. So super cool guy. The reason why I came upon him is this account that I follow on Twitter. I love this guy. It's called @DyeWorkwear. He's a really well-known fashion journalist, specifically in the menswear realm, which is where I work. But this is how I came upon learning about Edward Carpenter. Last week, this guy, Derek, tweeted, "One of the things I dislike about classic menswear is the idea of respectability that runs through many discussions. The argument goes something like this. You should put on a suit to show respect, and people would behave better if they wore suits or sport coats. If you read this too quickly, the idea can fly past you because it feels natural. Suits are associated with gentility, and so people who don't wear suits are low class and rude. The old world was full of suits and manners. New world has tattoos and piercings. The debates about clothing and morality are not new. At the turn of the 20th century, the lounge suit, which we now call the business suit, was considered the cargo shorts and t-shirt of its day. Proper gentlemen wore frock coats, working class wore suits. And in 1882, a guy named Samuel Pearson wrote a really great thing. I didn't include it because it's really long, but this is where Edward Carpenter comes in. He was a progressive writer in the 19th century. He hated the hypocrisy of elites. He felt that they dressed politely, but they held wretched views. And so he rejected their uniform and wore open-toed sandals instead of the more gentlemanly Balmoral boot. So here's his photos again. Now you can see why I was so inspired by him. Here he is wearing this gorgeous tweed suit with socks and sandals. Definitely not something that you would see in the day. A couple more photos of him. I love how he kind of cropped and chopped his neckwear. Just what an amazing kind of rebel of classicism back in the day. So I just wanted to include him. And then I want to close with this. This is the end of the tweet. You often hear people naturally judge others, so you should dress respectfully. This is how the world works. We should be careful with this argument because respectability in dress can show up in ugly ways, such as the killing of Trayvon Martin and the politics of hoodies. And we should not conflate what we elect to do with judging others. You can decide to dress up, but we should not treat people better or worse because of their attire. Suits are expensive and money should not be required for participation in society. So just wanted to share that. It inspired me this week just because I never heard of him, and what an amazing guy. And then I kind of feel like my last two links are good intros into next month, which is of course Gay Pride Month. So this next one I shared with a few of my colleagues this last week, and I was really inspired by it. There is a new book that is based on a podcast series that I actually was not familiar with, and it's called Bad Gays. I first want to tell you about the podcast, and then I'll kind of tell you about the book. But this goes with Danny's link about villains, but these are actual villains. So the whole premise of the podcast is, why do we remember our queer heroes better than we remember our queer villains? The podcast is about evil and complicated queers in history, from Alexander the Great to J. Edgar Hoover. Our history is littered with them. I'm reading from their website. Unlike the easy heroes like Oscar Wilde or Alan Turing, we rarely remember them as queer or as gay, these villains. And yet their sexuality is just as important an influence on their life as those whom we celebrate. So over the course of the podcast for a few years now, they have profiled queer people from the past whose lives have been overlooked by queer people on the search for historical icons. Among their ranks are emperors, criminals, fascist thugs, famous artists. It goes on and on. And all of these people have one thing in common. They engaged in same-sex or gender non-conforming behavior that in the context of today's society, we would understand as queer or gay. So on to the new book. Here's the cover. It drops at the end of May, right in time for Gay Pride Month. Basically, it's part revisionist history, part historical biography. And it basically profiles dozens and dozens of these people. And what I loved is what they said here. Together, these life stories expand and challenge the mainstream assumptions of sexual identity. They show that homosexuality itself was an idea that just emerged in the 19th century, and its interpretation has been central to major historical moments of conflict, from the Weimar Republic, the creation of the Nazi Party, to red baiting in Cold War America. So, wow, what a topic to explore. And I just thought it was really, really interesting. And I have listened to a couple of the podcasts this week, and it is really eye-opening. So I encourage you to look into that. All right, we're going to move on to Rachel's links. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Michael. So my first link here is from Hunter Boots. So of course, we're always exploring the outdoors through a new lens. We've spoken a lot about maybe unconventional groups that are heading outdoors, maybe bird watchers such as that. So here in this Hunter campaign, they're looking at people who maybe don't get the opportunity to go outdoors or want to be outdoors. So I really loved their new take on this. We definitely saw a huge rise in the gaming and the digital presence during the pandemic. And like Danny said, we're continuing to see how that kind of shows up. We're looking still at runway shows and seeing how the metaverse still changes our current reality. So Hunter Boot took all of this into mind, and they teamed up with two gamers for their latest campaign. So encouraging them to leave their screens and explore the British countryside. So they say that somewhere between online and IRL is where this new Hunter Play collection takes place. And it really emphasizes again that everyone can be outdoors and should embrace it regardless of their experience or their backgrounds. If you go actually to the Hunter Boots, if you click into their Instagram, I really love their last few posts. They really play up on this digital avatar. And if you scroll down a little bit, I think it's maybe the third row down. Oh, actually a little bit more down. Yes, this one here that you're right on, the guy holding the toolbox. But I love how they teamed up with this gamer, and they kind of have this choose your player, who you want to be. So he's either someone who's a bird watcher or a fisherman. So really taking him out of his own elements and maybe placing him into someone like a forager. So super fun. I love this initiative by Hunter Boots, and it kind of really encourages all of us to get out and play. But yeah, I love this also. They feature these two gamers, and it's really, again, taking them out of their elements and maybe having them look at the outdoors in a brand new way.
I think what's interesting when I saw your links this morning is that we typically don't see heritage, brands kind of use metaverse or, things like this in their campaigns. Typically it's more directional brands, right? So I thought that was a cool way to kind of get a new audience.
I think so too. And I think it's working because I was looking at some of the comments on here and people were saying, I don't know who your content manager is, or I don't know who your social media manager is, but they said snapped, but they're definitely seeing a huge change in their target audience. And again, yeah, Hunters is like famous welly brands. We know them, we love them, but really placing them and even kind of tapping into these new colors, it's really giving a play on giving Balenciaga a run for their money.
Definitely.
My next link is also a bit of, well, it's definitely a footwear link. If you're a client of ours, you can see we posted a hot now because it's a topic that we're really excited about here in the active department. So it's a design concept that we've been forecasting for quite a while now, and it's exciting to finally start seeing it come to life. So this was created by Nike's ISPA design team. ISPA stands for Improvise, Scavenge, Protect, and Adapt. So they recently unveiled 2 new modular sneakers that are produced entirely without the use of glue. So if you know anything about the footwear production, that's really, really major. So their concept is to challenge creators and designers to rethink the products and the entire design process in an effort to increase the brand's circular vision and make products that are more sustainable. So these sneakers are made for disassembly. So you can easily make it, take the components apart and recycle each part of the shoe. They're held together. There are 3 interlocking parts held together by tension and pegs in the sole, which then fit into the upper openings. So by rethinking this manufacturing process, and of course, the number of materials that are used to create the shoes, the production of these sneakers will greatly reduce emissions and eliminate these energy-intensive processes that we know impact the environment in a massive way. And what I also really love about this is they're looking not just at the sneakers that are releasing in June, but they're giving us even more insight. They're coming out with already another version for next year that it will be made from entirely recycled materials. So look for that in 2023. But Nike is always one that we look to for innovation. I think that this will really jumpstart a lot of the design process that is in the industry, and I really loved it and couldn't wait to share with all of you.
And I love how the colors here are kind of cozy yet gritty at the same time,
Absolutely,
really
absolutely.
For this
Look
one.
forward to that in our footwear innovation report, so a little bit more for that. And the next link I have is, again, a bit more, the active link. So I wanted to highlight this new concept store design that is designed by a studio called Ringo Studios. The founder of Ringo Studios was previously the retail designer for Glossier. So you can really see that sort of playfulness and the kind of adult playground emphasis really coming through. So this is a store that just opened in New York City in Soho, and it's the first retail space for Bala. If you're not familiar with these Bala bangles, they have all sorts of really playful weights. They have a ring, they have bars, but this is very much their aesthetics. So the brands, their signature weights are super oversized and amplified. Creating this concept, to me, it feels like kind of like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, a little bit surreal environment. You're walking through these weights that are larger than life, and allows you to kind of see and play with the product in a completely new way. Also, the products, going along with Anush, the products here inside the shops are organized chromatically. So there are distinct zones where the visitors can immerse themselves completely in that color for a personal connection to the moods. So again, that aligns with our ongoing research throughout the past seasons regarding the effect of color on one's mood. And for me, I really love this store, and I think that my next link also is about store design, but it's getting me really excited about the retail experience again. We've been online for so long, so seeing these stores, and again, I know in New York, the concept stores become a bit more playful and it gets you really excited and you want to travel and experience them firsthand. And this is definitely top of the list for me.
Rachel, has there ever been a more perfectly designed space for the millennial customer than this?
Exactly. And of course, they will be hosting events there. If you follow Bala on their Instagram, they just kind of released something during South by Southwest. Nico, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have something called Ballercise. So it's a little bit of a throwback. It's very 80s, like Jazzercise, but they're incorporating these classes with their equipment. So, you know, if you're an influencer and you get your picture taken there, that's the perfect store to work out in. Again, a little bit more of the retail shops. This Balenciaga store in London, they just did a huge bit of a redesign. So they wrapped their London store entirely in this pink faux fur. So the new update is to celebrate the brand's popular La Cagole bag. So it really highlights this maximalist style, bringing attention back to the it bag. And of course, it's sort of this over-the-top, high-maintenance attitude. So for this celebration, this pop-up experience, all of the shelves, all of the floor, seating, and even the racks are lined in this amazing pink faux fur for a super immersive experience. And then Balenciaga, you know, they're looking a little bit beyond as well. They're looking to repurpose and reuse the faux fur once the pop-up experience comes to a close. So they're researching the best way to donate the fur. So maybe it can be reused in products such as toys or other future projects as well for Balenciaga. But for me, again, this is another one of the stores where I really want to go and experience it firsthand. And I'm excited to see, again, you know, we're getting excited about the in-store shopping experience, and retail is on its way back. So looking forward to more stores jumping on this as well.
They could always contribute it to a new Muppets movie as well. It would work.
Yeah, that would work as well.
Love these colors. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, Lily.
Hi, everyone. I feel like we have a webinar every hour. Nice. All I do is webinars. So I want to share my latest music obsession. I'm literally obsessed. Like my family is making fun of me because I have gone to 4 of his concerts in the past 5 months.
Wow.
And I don't go to that many concerts, you guys. So I recently discovered, actually, Itai, my partner, discovered him, and I went to one concert and I looked around. I was like, how did I never ever hear of this incredible human being? So, you know, his site, just a little bit about him. Mark Eliyahu is born in Dagestan. Both his parents are musicians, so former Russia. He discovered this amazing instrument called kamancha, which is probably played by maybe 5 people in the whole world, honestly. He discovered it when he was in Greece, and then he went to dive deep and study the instrument in Azerbaijan for like 2 years with a master who teaches this little instrument. You could see it, it's handmade. It sounds to me like tribal music, it probably is, but done in the most modern way. He's done amazing, if you guys have watched the show called Tyran, he's done the music for that show and a few others. And I can't really explain why he captures my heart. All I could say is that I call it below the head music, meaning there are no words, but the way he plays this instrument says everything. He has an incredible band. We always say that every one of them could play with the most famous people, but they choose to play with him. He has a drummer who literally, I mean, he does a performance and literally drums on water, literal water, and creates sounds that I've never heard before in my life. And all of them, I mean, he performs with his dad at every show, and just the combination of the sounds really, really moves me, and my heart is always happy when I listen to his music. So at the end of this, it's gonna sound really bad on Zoom, but at the end of Michael, if you go back to the website, at the end, there's a little video of his, actually his most famous, go back to the main page, his most famous song is called Journey, of course, my favorite word. So you could play a little bit of that, but I think the other link shows more of his of his band. So maybe a few seconds of this and then go back to the other link, okay?
You got it. I know Below the Head music is your favorite. We've had some great examples at previous events of ours, so this is exciting. All right, here we go.
Yeah, Michael, switch to the other one because I want you guys to see his drummer as well.
All right, let me blow this up.
Still going. No.
How gorgeous is that instrument? It's
Oh
so
my God,
beautiful.
the instrument, first of all, it's impossible to play it because it's so ancient and tribal. So I say that it's become part of his body, honestly, because there's like no difference. There's no separation between him and that instrument. But the funny story, just before I complete, he performed with a famous Israeli singer on stage, and the guy came on, and I think he just did it to like appease, a new audience. But the guy was making fun that he comes out with this really expensive guitar, and here he is playing on some, I don't know, a squash or whatever. And Mark was like, "This squash costs more than any of the guitars you own." So he's incredible. He's traveling all over the world now. So, I haven't seen New York on this list, but if he comes to a city near you, I highly recommend it. But he's on Spotify and others.
Looks like you've got a lot of new fans checking by the chat box. So
yeah. He enjoy you guys. Every time I've brought a friend to the concert, they're so grateful. So
amazing.
Happy to share.
Thank you, Lily.
Thanks, Michael. Of course.
All right, we're gonna close out the May Show and Tell with our amazing VP of Women's Wear, Melissa Moylan. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I feel like I want to just rest with Lily's chair and not bring retail upon everyone. But unfortunately, that's the thread of my shares for today. I'm going to talk about retail and branding. This is an article. It's about Shein, who is seeking $1 billion in funding for a $100 billion valuation. And there were some interesting kind of stats in this article that I just thought were interesting about the way that they do business. Not necessarily positive, by the way. I think we're all familiar with Shein and how a lot of people on TikTok are, doing their hauls and reviews of their product. They have actually quadrupled their revenue over the past 3 years, which is crazy because that's in the midst of the pandemic, to now they're at $15.7 billion in sales. The kind of infographic that Michael's showing now, I think, is also really interesting because we're comparing it to some other fast fashion retailers. Something that I thought I was blown away with, Shein is said to have 1,000 new styles every day, versus if you take something like Zara and they have 2,000 items over 30-day span. So I was just blown away with that. And, just as a whole, and we've talked so much about sustainability, this is not the direction. And consuming goods that cost less than $5 US, it's just super wasteful. We've also seen initiatives from there they have H&M Group as well as Zara. And Zara, they have their sustainable program, Join Life. They also have initiatives to source everything sustainably within the next 20 years or so. H&M also has their Close the Loop program on garment recycling. So they're doing initiatives versus Shein, who is publicly held. They have no sustainable initiatives that we know of at this point. They have no transparency either because they're privately held in production and manufacturing. However, they did hire someone who is the head of environmental, social, and governance. So hopefully we will see a shift there. Something interesting in the article, just one more thing here, and then we'll move on to something a little bit more positive, is that they mentioned that Shein uses AI software that plugs trending styles from social media into production. And what's interesting about that is that at FS, we have a new tool called Insta Live. Some of our clients may have had the chance to use it, and we've been using it internally at FS for about the past year. We'll be launching it soon. And what we use it for is to track trends to leverage within our own reports. So that is something that's interesting that I found about how Shein is doing business and how they rely so heavily on social media trends.
I wanted to just add, if you don't mind, talking about being the theme of the day as villains. This is interesting because we had a meeting with a big retailer client of ours, I think in the last month, and they actually asked about this brand. And I think there was some confusion because they obviously target Gen Z. And as we know from our research, Gen Z is overwhelmingly positive towards sustainability, carbon footprint, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no denying that they are also keeping this kind of retailer abreast. So there seems to be a lot of confusion out there about why that is. Right, Melissa?
Yeah, I think it was another webinar that we had recently, and Chelsea from our youth team also mentioned that when she's thrifting, a lot of the products that are in there are from Shein. So that is recycling, and that's a positive, but the amount that they're producing and just the nature of consumers that are still buying this fast fashion. Whereas I think, to us as forecasters, we've preached, the notion of longevity for products too, or less, but better. And Shein is very much opposite of that currently.
It's crazy. They also steal a lot of street style photos from photographers and use them as models to illustrate trends. Then they kind of just Photoshop various colorways and things into them. So
yeah, there's even a lot on TikTok comparing like a Shine knockoff of Zara, which I think is
right, which is crazy.
cool.
Yeah, I will say I mistakenly bought some fun summer shirts from them last year. I've said this before. They immediately went into the trash. They didn't even go to Goodwill. They felt like a shower curtain. I learned my lesson, I promise.
Yeah.
Good topic though.
So,
Thank you.
so
for
we
bringing-
could do better. And
do
the
better.
next share that I have, it's also aligned with branding, and it's Calvin Klein's new strategy. I thought that this was interesting because it's also the polar opposite of what we just shared. It's not a fashion strategy whatsoever. They're going for what they call a hero product strategy, which is looking at the products that are selling really well and going deep into those categories and classifications. They mentioned that the collaboration that CK1 did with Palace, who's a skate brand, has been the most successful. And in that product assortment, they had t-shirts, sweatshirts, jeans, underwear. And so they're focusing on those. They're focusing on this top to bottom rebranding strategy within the next 3 years. I also thought it was interesting because, you know, as people that are in the industry, and I think a lot of us were excited when Raf Simons was creative director, but ultimately that didn't work for the brand of Calvin Klein today. So it was just interesting to learn about, you know, how they're shifting, how they're also reacting to what the market wants. And something great that I pulled from there was, as soon as you start to improve your product experience, consumer engagement, brand experience, that's all going to follow. Another thing that I took out from there is that I didn't realize Calvin Klein doesn't have any full price retail stores in North America. However, they operate 160 outlets. So I think that as they hone in on their product better and get more visibility, like almost going back to the Brooke Shields Calvin Klein ads of the 90s. I think that maybe we'll see them open more doors that might be of more interest and not just relying on kind of the off-price strategy as well.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that I feel like a lot of higher end brands are now learning lessons from direct to consumer brands that of course have always had this core competency focus. They choose one or two things that they're really good at, and that's what they do. And you're so right, a lot of these higher end brands just kind of throw everything at the wall, which is interesting because it's a very fast fashion mentality. But the Raf aesthetics certainly didn't gel with the heritage of the brand. So
right.
Great topic.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Also, I think it mentioned in the article that their sales, like their digital sales that they get, is really, really low currently. So I think that'll be interesting to see how they develop and where they market and to who. And then my final one is a collaboration between Forever 21, throwing it back to fast fashion here, and Hervé Leger. As we know, both of those brands in the 2000s were highly successful. And in women's wear, if you're in women's wear, you know that bodycon dresses are definitely back with all of the 2000s nostalgia. And it's interesting because Hervé Leger still exists as a really high price point. So you could buy it on Net-a-Porter from like $700 to all the way up to like $2,000 for a dress. In 2020, you might remember that Forever 21 bankrupt, but then they were acquired by Authentic Brands, who also owns Hervé Leger. So that's kind of convenient. And I think it's a smart collaboration from the two at this particular time. It's a really concise collection that they have. It's out now. It ranges in price point from $39.99 to $129.99. And, you know, I think that the styles that they're using, there's a lot of cutouts with that bodycon bondage style that's relevant once again now. I think that it's smart. Also, seasonality, looking into, you know, prom season, wedding season. It's a good collaboration.
The brands owns really weird things, like they own the Barney's New York rights now. They own Aeropostale. So I hope we don't see like a Barney's New York collab at Forever 21.
No. We won't let that happen.
Oh, we will not. Rest in peace, Barney's. Oh my God. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our May Show and Tell. We will see you back here, same time, same place, Wednesday, June 1st. Have an amazing month. Enjoy spring, stay inspired, and we'll see you in June. Bye.